we are moving on to session 2 of today's conference, and the title of the session is Sending and Enabling Community Networks Towards Bridging the Digital Divide. So basically today's session will have two themes: a general overarching theme, which is really about connecting the unconnected, i.e. connecting communities that used to be previously digitally unconnected, and bridging the digital divide. If you think about it, bridging the digital divide is really very important because it also attempts to peel away other levels and layers of divide. For example, the urban-rural divide, the social class divide, the gender divide. So that's the overarching general theme. Then we have a more specific theme, which is the success of community networks in connecting the unconnected. So community networks are actually a platform where communities now have affordable, reliable access to digital technologies, whereas previously they were unconnected. So community networks present a very viable alternative to commercial service providers. And if you think about it, community networks are actually a very powerful platform to carry out community development, specifically bringing community members together, so building community solidarity, and also building up community agency and empowerment. So actually community networks are very powerful also because they can be specially customized, tailor-made to address the specific needs of each community. So for example, because community networks, they are locally managed and operated, so community networks create job opportunities, livelihood opportunities for the local community members. And also because community networks help local businesses to outreach to markets outside the community. So they are also an important platform to enhance entrepreneurship and economic empowerment, especially women's economic empowerment. Community networks also allow the communities to create their own local content. So for example, documenting narratives, stories, documenting the local traditions, cultures, arts, and histories. Community networks also allow communities to set up their own community radios, giving community members a voice, allowing them for self-expression. So today, we are very privileged to have three distinguished speakers who will enlighten us further on community networks and their power in building up communities. So we have a little bit of reordering of speakers. So Professor Kanchana will be our first speaker because Professor Kanchana would have to leave us soon for another engagement. So let me now do a quick introduction of Professor Kanchana. Professor Kanchanasut is considered like the pioneer of the internet in Thailand. So she brought the internet to Thailand, and she was actively involved in many internet connectivity initiatives in other Southeast Asian countries. So she championed the idea of email and later the internet in the region in the 1980s. Professor Kanchana was the founding director of the Internet Education and Research Laboratory at the Asian Institute of Technology, or AIT for short, in Thailand, where she was also a professor of computer science at its School of Engineering and Technology. Professor Kanchana was the Vice President for Research at AIT from 2013 to 2016. Currently, she remains as a research professor and an advisor to the director of the Internet Education and Research Laboratory at AIT. So Professor Kanchana will share with us the work she has done with TechNet Community Network. Professor, please.
Thank you very much for your kind introduction and invitation. I got the invitation quite late, but nevertheless, I think it is very important for me to join, and I'm happy to be here. So I'd like to share with you my experience with building community network, which was actually outside my task as a professor. So I was always doing something that is not in my curriculum. But I learned a lot from this kind of activities. And AIT is an excellent institution that allow me to have rooms to play and develop. So let me start with the first slide. I will talk about TechNet, which is our first community network that we we first made our attempt in 2013. So, by today, we have 49 communities and 500 plus households, but gradually we have people who are withdrawing from our project. So about 100 over people. I'll tell you why later. So TechNet is in the red. At the moment, we have more community network around the country. So we operate the whole project under Net to Home social enterprise. So this is why you have TechNet at Net to Home social enterprise. So I will focus mainly on TechNet. In terms of technology, so that was the fun part from my side, how to bring technology to the remote area. So I started with this test bed that we try to build, which is based on using wireless network on elephant back in the jungle. So that was in 2006, and I worked on this with French laboratory and many other international research lab. So we had an experiment that people could communicate from the jungle. After we try to focus on post-disaster environment where your network is completely broken, and we try to reconstruct communication from various sites in Phuket. That was after the tsunami in 2004. So with that technology, sorry, next. Oh, forgot to say. Sorry. Next slide. Yeah, that was the Phuket network that we did in 2006. So I'm not familiar with calling out next. I always be my own, running my own. Everything is I'm not familiar to be the boss. Okay, next, please. Okay, so this is TechNet. Okay, we try to transfer the elephant network, which is the mobile network, to a fixed network. We install the devices in the houses in the village. So we try to use devices which are readily available in the market, and we put our own firmware inside the. So our research outcome is in the firmware that we push inside each devices. Okay, so that is our network. We started with only 16 houses in 2013. Next, please. Okay, so and we could monitor our network from AIT. Okay, so this is the screen at AIT that we can see what is happening in the village and the traffic that be going through the network. Next, please. Oh, and then I forgot to next myself. All right, so by today, after we moved into a village which had no connectivity, now many ISP are now offering the services, but they are offering at 750 baht a month. And what we try to do is use that link from ISP and make it shareable among many houses in the village. So you can break down to 200 baht each. So that means that our members could afford to use the internet from the ISP. So we can have many different ISP now in each village. And we use our technology to spread out the bandwidth to everyone. And the nice thing about it is that we can use many different ISP. It's like different gateway. So if one of them breaks down or something, the traffic will go to another one automatically. Next, please. So by today, we try to do, we have many locations in different provinces. So we build a virtual private network from each location to Bangkok. So we have net to home border router in Bangkok that all these members can talk to one another. You don't have to be in Tak to talk to your friends in Tak, but you can talk to anyone on net to home network. Next, please. And then I forgot to next. Okay. So my device is not happy. Okay. Right. So that's the technology part. Now, in terms of sustainability, next, please. Yeah, we organized in 2016. I started to see how to organize ourselves because we need to get a license to operate the way we operate it. That means we can buy bandwidth and share among our members. You need to become an ISP. You need to get an ISP license. So we registered this social enterprise net to home to act on our behalf to get ISP license and operate the whole thing. So net to home is under the TSNIC Foundation. TSNIC is in charge of domain name registration, which I helped setting up. So I can help put people together, which may not be the case for other countries. So we have net to home on this side, and we rely on Interlab AIT in terms of technology on research and development. And we, both of us, help train the local technician to handle the maintenance. So anything breaks down in the village, there would be a local guy who fix it or replace the equipment and communicate with us. So there are three components in this diagram. So each month, the local community collect the fee, and Net2Home would manage payment to the to the ISPs that we subscribe to. Okay, so this is how it works at the moment, and we are trying to make the bottom one bigger and bigger as years goes by. So next, please. So what happened during COVID-19? Next, please. Okay, there was a lockdown, and children had to stay at home. So our network was really appreciated because people could not go out from the house, and whereas the government free network only have one dropping point. So if anyone want to use the network, they have to come to that location, and it's not possible during lockdown. So the villagers appreciate our network, and the utilization was kind of evenly used during the day. And normally, network is used heavily at night, but not during daytime. But during the lockdown, the utilization is kind of even. And it was reliable enough for the kids to attend remote classroom. And at that time, we told them we would not collect any money. And we collected 200 baht each during the year, and that gave us a kind of 100 baht in reserve. So we used that money to compensate for this loss. And when lockdown became more relaxed, we collect 50% of the normal from the normal rate. Okay, so that's what happened during the lockdown. And what happened is that children in Bangkok slum themselves could not get this kind of facility. They did not have net to their own houses, and they could not attend remote classes. So there was a discussion on how to get them connected. So we help the Krong Tơi slum. Next, please. Yeah, this is a slum in Bangkok. Google used to have a hotspot in this area, but it was no longer supported. So everything was shut down. So we picked one of the orange spot, and then we built the network around it. So the children in that area could access the classes, and you could see that it was very difficult to connect them because of the way the houses were so it's very congested area, and we need to build a lot of something poles and wire, doing our own wiring. Okay, next, please. All right, so by today we have many ISPs who kind of offer very high speed broadband to the villages, and we are finding it. We are in a position that we don't know what to do, whether we should leave the area that we've been with for almost 10 years and leave them alone and to handle the new provider, or we should stay. And after a long while, I start thinking that we spend a lot of time developing the community, and we developed the local know-how, and we developed the technician. So it would be a big loss if we simply move to another village and leave them alone. So instead of doing that, we try to find values that we can add to our community network. Next, please. Okay, so the first thing we did was, as I mentioned to you, that we have all the network connected to a net-to-home router in Bangkok, and that is done by VPN. They don't have to do dedicated link. So from there, they can have access to all kind of contents that provided by CDN, just as good as the people in Bangkok. So they can have rich content and with high quality. Okay, next, please. And then we built, my lab was working on IoT for air quality. So we install this air quality sensors on our network. So the villagers can use this air quality as well as humidity and temperature and all the wind sensors to help in the agricultural farming activities. Next, please. Okay, so this is one application, because in that area they have forest fire. So our sensor can help them detect, provide an early warning when forest fire happen. Next, please. And this was a real incident that happened in February. The fire broke out near one of the members' farm. So that was detected on our IoT network. So they managed to put off the fire in time. Yeah. So this is the kind of value added that we think is important for community network. Yeah. Next, please. Another value added activities that we do is maybe fit into this conference. We are helping them to sell products online. Okay, and within the village themselves, we build a digital ledger. So you have blockchain inside the village. Of course, at the moment, they are not using the blockchain stuff as yet, because we finished that before the pandemic. So we had no time to train them as yet. We will go back to do that. Next, please. I would just leave that for you to read. It's online, right? It's going to be kept online. So just the key takeaway. So I think I already mentioned everything that's on these slides. So basically, I would say that community network is a very important alternative network, particularly for remote areas, that people should be able to protect their own interest. They should not wait for someone to come and sell them things, services. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Kanchana. I wonder whether you have a bit of time to take any questions or...
Yeah, a few.
Okay, thank you.
Any question? Yes.
There's a gentleman behind, and later on there's a lady closer to the front.
That was very interesting project and presentation. But my question is, what is you mentioned a lot about advantages, but what is disadvantages? Because having network is good, but on the other hand, many kids, for example, these days maybe they like to play games a lot, or maybe they can access to different things without necessary. And if you look at some countries, you can also see like they don't allow the kids like under 10 or 12 not to use the mobile phone and things like that. So what is the consequences or advantage or what is there anything how you manage in this process? Do you see any issues or yes?
Okay, right. Thank you for your question. I think this is a question for everyone in this room. So I don't think we have an answer that fits for your question, but for our network is not really high speed. Okay, it cannot accommodate. It cannot when you want to use it for this type of application, you will not be happy about it. So you turn it off anyway. And we are not going to increase the speed just for that. All right. So we will build value added by providing services inside the village, like IoT, like trading inside the village, where if you want to go to town, you want to share transportation like Uber, or this type of activity inside the village. So I think that is valuable. Thank you.
The lady over here.
Thank you for your presentation. I'm Christine from Grameen Foundation. I'm interested to know, with the many geography or municipalities in Thailand, how do you pre-select the area of where you will implement first? And what is your recommendation if this can be replicated in other countries that may have different types of landscapes?
For our case, we happen to land at this village accidentally. Our lab was flooded 3 meters of water high. Okay, we had nothing to do for a few months. So we just started to talk to various people and see what to do. So we found we were housed in the Ministry of Education. So we talked to community education people, and we became friendly with this particular one, and so this is how it happened. But my advice, if you want to get started, you need to find a place that you are kind of have some familiarity, and you know the people who are willing to work. Otherwise, you cannot get anything started. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then a question. I'm sure.
Very interesting presentation and very empowering work for community. I have just a question: how you are, ensuring that when anything we do in the community network, we often see that the women are excluded from the process. So how you were ensuring that girls and women have equal access to the training and to the technology? What you were, it's a very innovative, but how you are ensuring that the gender balance is maintained? Thank you.
In our case, it's gender off balance. Because if I look in my project, we find more women than men, and the people even at the village level, only 2 technicians are men. The rest are women. So I don't know. I think it maybe Thailand is exceptional in this kind. I found very interesting talks by all friends from different countries, but in this country, we don't seem to have the same problem that you do. But we are happy to help you if we could. Thank you.
And one more final question from Anna.
Hi, my name is Anna Tan from the Ateneo Center for Social Entrepreneurship. This is related to what Christine was asking earlier about replication. I was wondering if you do it in a country like the Philippines, do you have any advice for how to deal with local government units, for example, because they're very involved with communities? And when I say involved, they meddle a lot. So what was it like in your experience working with these institutions, for example, in setting up, especially in lower income households where there seems to be a stronghold for local government units there?
You may find that I hardly mention government. It's not that I don't respect them. I think they have a lot of work to do. But I found that working with them, it seems that the overhead is too high for me. You have to spend a lot of time. Yeah, I'm getting old. I don't have that kind of patience. Yeah. So what we do is we try to abide. We try not to go beyond, whatever rules they have, I will follow. The technology that I proposed here could have been better, but I did not go beyond whatever they said. Okay, so we try not to do anything that they don't like, and that's all. Yeah. Avoidance, so that they cannot complain. Okay, so but at the same time we can move fast.
Okay, so thank you very much, Professor Kanchana.
Before Professor Kanchana leaves, maybe we can present to her our token of appreciation. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, let me introduce our second speaker. Our second speaker is Gustaff Harriman Iskandar. Gustaff is an artist and a writer by trade and passion. In 2003, he developed Common Room Networks Foundation, which became an open platform for arts, culture, ICT, and media. Common Room Networks Foundation now works with a village, a small village called Ciptagela. I understand it's in Java, in Indonesia. And so Gustaff will be sharing with us his experience helping the villagers of Ciptagela set up a community network. So Gustaff, please.
Okay, thank you for the brief introductions. I will try to be brief in my presentation in terms of our experience in developing the community network infrastructure in Ciptagela village. So, the village itself located in West Java, right in the border of a different province between West Java and Banten province. And I will, so this is the picture of the village. It's located in the national park of Halimun Salak Mountain. Next, please. And yeah, as you probably noticed, this already amplified in some of our talks briefly that during the COVID-19, the internet connectivity is becoming very important tools, not only for communications, but for many different purposes. And in Indonesia, there has been a significant growth of internet penetrations, but in terms of end users in the last miles, we still have quite a lot of challenges, and there are many different reasons. One of which is the geographical context in Indonesia is quite diverse, from remote islands to dense forests and so on, including the coastal areas. And there is also a gap in infrastructure, not only the telecommunications, but also power sources. And there is also lack of digital literacy, digital skills, and gender gaps in many different areas. Next, please. And like, for example, in West Java alone, during the COVID-19 pandemic outbreaks, there are more than 42,000 students who cannot attend the remote education. So there's a learning loss in the process. So this is in Java. In West Java is one of the most fastest growing area, the dense populations. So you can imagine that outside of Java Islands, there are more challenges like this happening. Next, please. And rural areas and remote places have a multiple impact of global and local complexity and challenges, starting from the impact of climate change, the increasing gap of development between urban and rural areas, population growth. Our government like to have this as a demographic bonus, but from our perspective, it's not a bonus. It's going to be a problem because there are no such quality in this growth. And the impact of COVID-19 is revealing the increasing gap and divide, including the digital dividers. And just recently, some of our friends conducting research that rural areas and remote places also have a multiple impact of unintended consequences of internet and digital media adoptions, hoax news, disinformation, misinformation, etc., including the gender-based violence is happening. And what is community networks? Next, please. With this very simple understanding, community network infrastructure is something that is the infrastructure that are developed by the people, maintained by the people, and utilized by the people. And by doing so, we have a specific framework for that that's supposed to be legal. It comply with policy and regulations. And it's supposed to be safe and secure and affordable for many people, including for those who are living in rural areas and remote places, and supposed to be meaningful in the sense that how meaningful connectivity can benefit to increase the quality of life of people, to increase the public administration, education, health service, and so on. And working in that area, we have a working framework that we call 5L, just to make it easy. The technology are supposed to be low-tech or accessible in local context. It's supposed to be low energy because in many different rural areas, there are no sufficient electric support. It's supposed to be easy to maintain because there are limited technicalities that are happening in the rural areas. And it's supposed to be low learning curve, like people can be easily understand and learn how to develop such infrastructure. And one of the most important thing is local support and commitments, either from local communities, local governments, local institutions, and resources. Next, please. So this is the pilot project. We started to do community network projects infrastructure development in 2019 in Ciptagelar village. Is located in the mountainous area, and the second prototypes is being developed in 2020 is in the southern coastal areas in West Java, which different topology and different geographical contexts, which also represent different challenges. Next, please. And now we are started to expand our outreach to different areas in Indonesia. So you can imagine Ciptagelar is here. This. Exactly. So by doing this is also part of our strategy to extend the project outreach, just to collect different solutions and different approach, because in terms of community network is always a context specific by nature, and there are no such thing as one policy that fit for all in terms of approach, because not only the geographical context but also the socio and cultural context also have influence how we build and develop the local infrastructure. Next, please. So this is the community network infrastructure that we developed in 2019 in Ciptagelar village. So we combine the infrastructure with solar panel in order to make it sufficient. Next, please. And by 2020, we developed ICT training center and media lab in the village, so we can organize and facilitate many trainings, because in our understanding, community networks are strongly rely on the networks of people. So we should focus on the capacity building, technical skill development, and so on, that are more focused on the brainware rather than software and hardware. Next, please. And this is the curricula and training materials, starting from basic, how to use computers, how to turn on the computers, computer networks, into a more advanced utilizations of internet, like the internet for village administration, internet for remote education, internet for small and medium enterprises, etc., etc. And this year we have a new mandate to conducting training materials for internet and disaster risk reduction in Indonesia. Next, please. And you see there's a proportion of curricula and training materials, like more than 47% is technical, and the other is more to human rights, COVID-19 response. Now we also focusing on COVID-19 recovery initiative, including digital literacy, business development, and understand how to develop and more understanding on policy and regulations. Next, please. So this is you see the bandwidth access is keep on increasing consistently from time to time. This is from 2001 until 2002, and this year is already doubled. Next. So you see the community network infrastructure development somehow also have a benefit to create new jobs and income for local communities. So this is the number of income we generate from 2020 until this year. And I think by this year, we have already consistently monthly income in general from like $10,000 a month that we can allocate for bandwidth, maintenance services, and so on. Next, please. If there are back, there's a down, there is a troubleshoot happening in the infrastructure. Let's say that in October, the heavy rain and the lightning strike on the infrastructure, and then there's a short drops in the income. Next, please. So you can see that the allocations, the biggest is still to the ISP, because they need to pay out the licenses, tax, and everything. So this is what we are trying to discuss with our government, how the local community network can have their own licenses and can have a tax incentive, because the tax is around 11%, then we have to pay every month. If we can reinvest that money to build the infrastructure, is more productive and more meaningful somehow. Next, please. So we also help the local community networks operator to save and reinvest the money. So every month we collect at least 15 to 16 million, so approximately around 10 millions. And we reinvest to areas that still doesn't have any connectivity. If there are some requests or there are some troubleshoot happenings, we doesn't rely to government support or any donor organization. So it is somehow already operate by themselves, and it's growing. Next, please. So in terms of gender profile, we always try to include female operators and technicians in many different trainings. Up until now, we have reached involved around 37% of female participants in some of our trainings. Next, please. And the profile background, you see the biggest participants is mostly students, especially students from vocational school. And in some rural areas, you can see a small numbers of participants, including even a shaman in the village is taking part in the training, because in some areas, we need to conduct a specific rituals and cultural event in order to engage the local communities to be part of these developments. Teachers, government officials, fishermen, and even housewife also taking part in our trainings. Okay, next, please. So this is some of the documentations from some of our activities. You see, there is always a lot of people involved. Next. Yeah, sometimes we also share our experience with our colleague from APC by online. Next, please. Okay, I think that is all. There is a last image. Next, please. So this picture actually came from 2 years ago. This is the first online workshop that we organized in the village. So this group is a young farmer group in Ciptagelar village, and 2 years after this meeting, now the group is already growing, and they already have their own markets, and they they can sell their local products using the internet. They have their own WhatsApp groups and peer-to-peer networks in different village, so they can communicate better and develop their business. And this picture is something very important, because before this, there are no such thing as online learning in the village, but now it's already something very common. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gustav, for a very wonderful, interesting presentation. I suggest that we hold off our questions and maybe we should move on to our third presentation. So let me now present our third speaker. So our third speaker is Dr. Carlos Rey-Moreno. Carlos is with the Association for Progressive Communications, or APC for short, where he co-leads its Community Networks initiative, and he oversees projects in Latin America, Africa, and Asia. Carlos also coordinates its policy and regulatory work to create a more enabling regulatory framework for local operators and community networks. So as part of that work, he has provided training to regional regulatory associations and policymakers in Africa. He has authored reports and written submissions to public consultations on the topic, and he has participated frequently as a speaker and a convener in internet governance and similar telecommunications policy forums. So Carlos would now share with us the connection between policy and creating an enabling environment for community networks. Carlos, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Is it okay? Thank you very much, Professor. So after Kanchana's and Gustav's presentation and the boring one, I'm going to be talking about policy and regulation. I have done work on the field as well, but after doing the type of work that Gustav has been doing for many years in South Africa, we realized that the work of policy and regulation was also important. The work of fundraising and creating networks of support for organizations such as Common Room, Kanchanas, and other were important as well. So we've been creating this program that we have within APC to create those enabling and support environments to existing organizations and existing community networks. Next, please. So APC is a rather old, is from the 1990 organization. It's a network of civil society organizations that are dedicated to the use of ICTs for social justice. We have 62 organizational members and 35 individual ones that are working in 72 countries or 73 countries, with focus from online gender-based violence all the way to infrastructure. We are a rather political and activist organization around advocacy and leveraging as well. We do participate a lot in policy processes. We hold UN ECOSOC status, as well as we are one of the few NGOs that are member of the International Telecommunications Union. So we do participate a lot on those processes and at the UN level to bring up elements that have to do with human rights and technology. We participate also at the regional level, at the national level. We try to be as active as possible when there are opportunities to influence policy and regulation. We've been analyzing quite a lot how the telco policy and regulatory space is influenced by other actors and trying to replicate. And one of that is being very present when there are opportunities for public consultation and making submissions that allow the work of the common rooms of the world. APC as such is involved in community networking since the 90s, actually pre-internet days. Sorry. Oh, wonderful. Nice. And I can also go. And okay, cool. So yeah, but since 2017, that's when the program, the LogNet program started. We've been more active working on community network development because of some of the things that have been said, right? Like there was a moment like around 10 years ago when everyone thought that the mobile network operators were going to solve the problem. And then we started to realize that they were not going to solve the problem for the grassroots and those living in rural and remote areas, and that therefore new models and complementary models need to be supported as well. Since then, we've been active in 16 countries in the Global South, in Africa, Latin America, and Asia Pacific, and we are supporting 50 organizations, among which Common Room and TACnet. Yeah, next slide. Do I do it? Wow. No. Well, anyway, just into the context, because I saw many of the slides in the morning talking about SDGs. Well, telecommunications is also part of the SDGs, in particular, indicate 9C of Goal 9, where it talks about significantly increased access to information and communication technology and strive to provide universal and affordable access to the internet in least developed countries by 2020. Obviously, that hasn't happened, but is also part of the framing of the SDGs, right? The way this SDG is being monitored is through mobile technology and how mobile technology is providing access. But providing access doesn't mean that people are using it, right? Providing access means that there is, if you turn on your phone, you are picking up a signal. So at the moment, and see a lot of reports saying, no, everyone is connected. Well, everyone is connected because there is coverage, but there are many other barriers, as they have been pointed out, that makes that there is a very big usage gap, that is the one in blue, whereby countries, people in those countries are not using connectivity for whatever reason, in many cases, due to affordability, due to the lack of the business models of the traditional operators do not quite cater for the economic means of people in rural and remote areas, as well as more disadvantaged and historically oppressed communities. Next slide. But also touching upon those who are connected. This is a taxonomy from the World Economic Forum that kind of divides the way that people tend to use connectivity and where countries, well, they talk about countries, I want to use it to think about users. But most of the connected users in the slide before are really using it for very basic forms of communications. They are not using them for enrich day-to-day life or play a vital part on their lives, right? Either because of the affordability, of the quality of the connection as well. In many cases, it goes down very suddenly when many users are using it, so on and so forth. So the current model that has some limitations. Next slide. Okay. So this is Doreen Bogdan Martin, who is the current Secretary General of the International Telecommunications Union, that said last year that connecting half of the population, 53% of the population, wasn't that hard. Probably because that population was in urban areas with rather medium to high income, and that it was fitting the business models of those operators that wanted to get revenue and profit out of it. But the connecting the remaining 47 is a different ball game, and business as usual will not work, right? So this is not APC saying this. This is actually the Secretary General of the International Telecommunications Union. So what business as usual means, and how can we think about it from a metaphor that a colleague of mine, Steve Song, has created, that is the jar of stone, that probably some of you have heard of. The thing is that most often than not, telecommunications has been thought through global operators. I'm sure that here in the region, in Africa and Latin America, there are multinational companies that are in more than one country providing access and whose main goal is monopoly, right? But there are few operators that you can fit into a country, that they can rival each other. You cannot have 3, 4, more than 5 in each country if you count them with your hands. The thing is that they are huge. And if you put them inside a jar, the jar looks full. But then if you fill that jar with water, there is quite a lot of space. Actually, at around, potentially 50% of the jar is still empty. So then there are smaller rocks, what you all know as ISPs. ISPs that are still for profit, that they are a bit more localized, but they don't want to grow nationally, they don't want to grow internationally, they have a completely different profile. Still, they fill the gaps from the big operators, but if you fill that jar with water, still there is plenty of space for people, in this case, that are unconnected. No? And this is where other models, cooperatives, social enterprises, common pool resource model may create sustainable access to communications, right? So we need to diversify the ecosystem of actors that play in the telecommunications sector. So this is part of some work that we published last year. The link is on the slides in case you want to have a look at it. That creates 3 categories of community connectivity providers depending on the value that is retained within the local community, right? And probably you can challenge this coming from where you're coming from, social enterprises, but one is community networks as such, where the network is owned by the community and the returns are reinvested into the community. There are municipal networks, and here it goes to the local government units in the Philippines, and depending how much their control may really mean that there is community ownership, and that kind of, it is in the community, but not potentially everyone benefit the same. And then social enterprises that do have a double bottom line business that seek both financial and social returns, and that returns can be reinvested or returned to some of the shareholders. And this is a super long slide. I'm not going to enter here, but this is part of that piece of work that we said, that there are different community networks at different stages, right? Depending on whether they are started, sustaining, growing, or maturing, and that there are different financial mechanisms for different community networks at different stages. In stage 1, most of the organizations that you are going to hear about start with grant funding, start by testing, start by, Sarvani was telling me this morning at breakfast, similar to some social enterprises as well, where they start, cultivating and seeding the work before the business can expand much bigger. So the same happens with, we need to see this connectivity similar to other enterprises. I don't know why this is not here. So there are currently some funding opportunities available. If you are interested, come back, talk to me. One from ISEA Asia, ISEA has got a grant. Gustaff and Common Room got a grant. There is a current application open in case you want to start trying. Please contact me as well. Also, Internet Society has a rolling fund for supporting this type of initiatives. If you are interested, please go ahead. But there is something with the, okay. But we need to talk a bit beyond grants, a bit beyond, because grant creates an organizational culture, again, as probably you all know, that doesn't cater itself to self-generated income and sustainability, right? So there are other financial mechanisms that need to be starting to be discussed for locally owned internet infrastructure. And we created this resource with the Internet Society and Connect Humanity. It was done by Connectivity Capital to try to bridge that gap in between financial organizations and grassroots to break that silo of grants, and the organizational culture that it creates. But there are other elements for a conducive environment. This is where it gets a bit boring. I'm going to try not to make it very boring. That is the policy and regulatory environment, right? We heard from Gustaff about the licenses. We heard from Kanchana about the licenses. We heard this morning from the member in the Philippines about the licenses. Licenses for operation are important, and they can put you out either because they are too expensive, or because because they are too bureaucratic, or simply because you don't want to operate in the margins of legality, right? So we are doing quite a lot of work around operators licensing to bring the cost down, to bring the complexity down. There are many successes in some countries, in Argentina, in Kenya, in South Africa, you name them, that we are contributing to that change. Also in relation to spectrum licensing and the fees, most of this network utilize Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is good, but it has some limitations. There is other spectrum, such as mobile spectrum operator, that is unused in most rural and remote areas that could be used by these operators. If connectivity was an end goal in and by itself by governments and there was political will. The same happens with backbone and backhaul to connect to the gateways, financial support, I just talked about it, as well as access to network information. Where are those points of presence in the fiber? Where are those gateways that you need to connect to create this bottom-up approach? The good news are that in 2022, there has been a very big change in relation to international recognition of these approaches. Because of COVID, the two most important conferences from the ITU took place in 2022. The one from the development sector, the World Telecommunication Development Conference, took place in June. And then the Plenipotentiary Conference that brings together the three sectors of the ITU took place in October. In both of them, in the Bridging the Digital Divide resolution of WTDC, and in this super long one also about the digital divide in the Plenipotentiary Conference, they recognize the role of complementary access solutions, which is a euphemism for community networks, to bridge the digital divide. Recognition at this level in a sector that traditionally has looked at only big operators is major, and we are starting to see how this helps with the ITU bringing in governments to start this discussion. Last week, we were holding a workshop in Cameroon, which is a rather conservative country, I would say, that wanted to, thanks to us working with the ITU, started to look at this issue. And I hope the same may happen in the region. Because what's happening in the region? Well, there has been some progress. And actually, this report from the Asian Development Bank is from December 2022, probably following up this other trend that has been happening thanks to COVID and thanks to these other conferences and discussions that do mention and include and propose and promotes community network solutions as last mile connectivity to address the affordability frontier. And again, this is the Asian Development Bank, not APC, right? In terms of what's happening at the policy and regulatory level in the continent, well, not much. You know, there are not that many countries where there is such a thing as interest from the national government or from the regulator to start engaging about, you know, in many of the other countries where we work, it starts by a technical assistance of, you know, how can we implement this? How can we look into these issues? How can we make community networks or complementary access operators something that we can integrate within our framework? Well, here, that conversation has not yet happened. And we hope, you know, there has been historical discussions facilitated by Internet Society with ESCAP in 2021. And we are hoping that more of these conversations, now that the trend has changed, will happen and will contribute to opening more opportunities for anyone wanting to do this type of, or implement this type of solutions in the region. So basically, this is probably the last slide, that is, you know, the next big thing. Everyone talks about the next big thing in telco, no, and in telecommunications and in ICTs, and we do strongly believe that the next big thing to solve the digital divide will be a lot of small things. And that comes with the type of work that social enterprises and community networks are doing in the sector. And I believe that's my last slide. Yes, that is. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Carlos, for a very enlightening macro overview of the challenges ahead in creating an enabling and conducive environment for community networks to thrive. I'm conscious of the time, so I'd like to ask Gomer, how many questions can we have for our two speakers? Or just one? Okay, thank you, Gomer.
We are around. We are not living like Kanchana. We are in the coffee if you want.
Sorry, my question will be for Dr. Carlos. I don't know. Is this in my observation right now? Internet access is very much under attack, especially for some regions like what happened in Myanmar, for example. We have also heard the situation similar in Iran during the mass protests, and what we would like to hear from you in the context of the APC is you mentioned that this advocacy is very important, but there is also underlying issues that right now I think in Indonesia, when last year we conduct the G20, is also some discussion about the civic space in the civic space in digital situation. I think this is also one important things that I don't know what can we I don't know what to say, but probably you have like in your observation as APCs to see this kind of trend. Is it like I'm feeling that this is going to be like increasing, and this also situation that probably Mas Gustav can also share that freedom in internet access in Indonesia also we have also under attack when some, for example, activists has been attacked in the cyber social media, etc. This is not like community networking, but I think it's reflect to the situation about the importance of community access, not in the perspective of the political situations. I don't know, is it appropriate to be discussed here, or we can discuss?
I'm super happy to discuss anything, so I don't have any problem. Having said that, can you please post the recording? No, well, it depends. I mean, for me, as a technical answer, the more diversified the internet, the less chances there are for internet shutdowns, which goes against my own advocacy, because then they are not going to want to open up the licensing framework. But if you have, that's what they want. They want to have 2 or 3 providers that are their friends from university, that they can pick up the phone and say, close the network because I tell you so, right? But if you diversify and you have what is required, or thousands of providers, then you cannot call 1,000 people. 1,000 people are not gonna. Actually, through a lot of the history of internet shutdowns, they only shut down the big operators. In many of the African countries, I mean, if you engage with the research on internet shutdowns, they shut down the big ones. And so it makes the internet more resilient, it makes the internet more diversified, and it brings. Now, what can we do with governments? I'm not sure if I want to answer that question. Do you want me to answer that question? I want to go back home. There are people waiting for me. So later.
Okay, thank you, Carlos. So perhaps, another question? Okay.
It's nice to see that kind of the connectivity is being created for the community, those who are at the grassroots level. So many of the countries still they're finding difficulties in internet facilities for many places, especially for those who are living in tribal areas as well as in hilly track. So people are finding difficulties even in mobile phone connections. So I think what is a kind of experience you have where there is no internet facilities? So because I think most of the civil society organizations are NGOs working very deep areas like hilly tract and all. So how do we connect the community who are there in the villages, in those kind of villages? Is there any kind of alternate system you thought of or otherwise coming across over a period of time?
you want me to go on? Or you want to?
You can just start.
I want to answer to you, but also in relation to something that was asked in this table to Kanchana as well. That is in relation to, we don't connect anyone. You know, is people in those communities in many cases requesting that we work with them. So there is some sort of an interest, some sort of a community need that is expressed, and that's to the communities that we, not necessarily APC, but the organizations that are rooted at the national level, then do have those granularity networks into the, and they know how to work with them. You know, the technology has been, we need to I mean, it's complex, telecoms is complex, but we need to demystify it. I think there has been a lot of people during many years that has been working on making technology almost plug and play. If you think about your home router, what do you need any literacy, or there is a drawing telling you where to plug it and what to do? So if there is, and that's facilitated by an organization like many of your organizations that are doing much more difficult work with grassroots, telecoms is just another one. You know, it's a question of creating manuals, it's a question of creating other sorts of tools for people that are illiterate. That are illiterate doesn't mean that they are not intelligent, right? So is engaging with them in their terms, and you know how to engage with them with things that are much more complex than creating a network, really. And it's about demystifying telecoms, really, because it's much easier than, I mean, it has complexities, but as long as there are support organizations, as long as there are those type of, most of your organizations that do want to, you know, contribute to the community development and accompany them through the process, it's possible because you have the knowledge. You know how to intermediate those challenging points.
Okay, to give a brief additions on that, from our experience, community networks is always started with community, like the community empowerment. So we always start with people, and there are 3 different components that are somehow relevant in these discussions: the brainware and software and hardware. But the brainware is one of the most challenging part. Like once you already engage with people and they have this technical abilities to use the software and hardware, the problems is solved. But the thing is that we recognize there are different elements in that area also. One is policy and regulations. It can be very challenging, but it also can be very accommodating in the sense that when the government started to realize there are alternative means of communications, there will be a policy that can support that. And there's some technicalities and infrastructure that needed to be developed. The third part is how we set up good examples on meaningful connectivity, because if we build the infrastructure only for communication or only for entertainment, is going to be different things. And the 4th component is the digital literacy and community empowerment. Is so back to the start, because the literacy and community empowerment is something that has to be strongly embedded in the local communities. It's like a learning experience. We cannot just organize 1 or 2 years training and capacity building and everything is solved, because there's always something new coming up. The technology is always developed, and in terms of connectivity infrastructure, from our observation, is not a rocket science. Everyone can learn how to build and maintain the infrastructure, but there is always a moment where you have to start with 1 people or 1 village, and then it will grow by itself. When there is a people who know how to set up this community network infrastructure and how to utilize to help people to increase their quality of life somehow. Thank you.
One more last
Thank you.
question.
Hi, I'm Kat from Pilmico and Goldcoin. I have a question. When it comes to security and data privacy of your customers, how do you ensure that they are secured and their data are well protected?
Are you secure? Are you sure that your data is secure?
To some extent, I think yes.
because that doesn't rely on us. I mean, that doesn't depend on us. It is the platforms who are selling our data, right? So, I mean, it's very, I mean, you can protect the network with passwords. You can protect, create, end-to-end encryption. You can do as many things as you want. But then if on the other end of the platform, that's why some platforms are being developed to be alternatives to those other platforms, because it's been proven in the last, I don't know, years that the privacy is, the breaches on privacy are more on the corporate end than they are on the user end. There are scams, but there are scams all over the internet. I mean, similar to, I don't know, the gaming and these other things. I think internet may arrive one way or another to the people, and community networks give an opportunity to the communities to discuss what it means, whether those privacy concerns are there or not, whether those gaming concerns or access to other type of content are there or not. It gives the community an opportunity to discuss. In many of our cases, we were just given this and deal with it, right? So I think that is changing the question rather, because privacy is an issue for the internet in itself, not for community networks, not for, I think access to content or gaming, and youth losing their lives, and is an issue for the internet. It's similar, like what do we do with this? Is another discussion altogether that doesn't have, that is a much more broader societal discussion than this type
but
of
towards your subscribers, are there any policies in place for them?
The thing is that you can set up your policies because you control the infrastructure. So there are cases, for instance, well, I don't know if you have particular policies, but there are communities that we know of that we are supporting that is at 10 p.m. the network is off. So people cannot access the network at night. And we are going to filter this type of content. We are going to provide for free this other type of content. We are going to curate this other type of, it depends because you own the infrastructure. It's a different approach towards the internet as well, the content that you access, how do you access it? Of course, it gives you more responsibility because someone from your community now have access or can have access to certain communications. The very same security, but this is again, you are giving that security if you don't provide them, if you don't set up end-to-end encryption yourself, you are giving that right to your ISP to filter and read and whatnot your communication. So it's a societal one. In our case, or at least in the one that I know the best, that is in South Africa, where I'm more engaged, is you train, you discuss with the users, you provide technical training about internet security. I wonder how many other people that access through the MNOs, the mobile network operators of the world, are given that opportunity. So, yeah.
So thank you very much. Allow me to have 1 minute to do a quick wrap up of the key takeaways from our presentations by our three wonderful speakers. So earlier from Professor Kanchana, we learned of the importance of involving multiple stakeholders to ensure the success of a community network. So in the case of TechNet, she mentioned Net to Home as the ISP, and then her own Interlab at AIT was the one that did R&D, and then there's the local community. And she also reminded us that to keep community networks relevant to the communities, we constantly need to value add. So in her case, she started going into like measuring air quality, doing forest fire detection, and also setting up a distributed ledger. And then from Gustaff, we learned the 5 L's of community networks. I remembered low tech, low energy, low maintenance, low learning curve, and local support. Gustav also reminded us of the importance of understanding the local context and also the importance of developing curriculum and training materials. And then from Carlos's presentation, he reminded us that providing access to connectivity does not mean that people are using that connectivity. And then he also mentions the challenge in helping the remaining 47% of the population to get connected. And then he also shares with us some of the challenges in developing an enabling environment for community networks, such as licenses, backbone and backhaul infrastructure, financial support, and access to network information. So thank you very much, panel speakers, for a very enlightening session.
Thank you. We'll award our token of appreciation to our speakers. And also to our very able moderator, Dean Albert Teo. We have a short video prepared to launch the multi-stakeholder platform on technological innovations for sustainable development. But maybe I'd like to introduce the platform before we show the video. The multi-stakeholder platform for technological innovations for sustainable development seeks to gather social entrepreneurs, social enterprises, and other stakeholders in the social enterprise ecosystem who are interested in or passionate about technological innovations. The platform aims to achieve 4 objectives. Number 1 is to facilitate learning and exchange of experiences and best practices of technological innovation, adoption and diffusion among social enterprises and other key stakeholders. The second is to facilitate cooperation among social enterprises and other key stakeholders. Third is to facilitate cooperation among social enterprises, other key stakeholders, so that they can collectively develop and advocate changes in government policies and programs. And then the fourth one is to facilitate cooperation among stakeholders of social enterprises to collectively attract and generate resources and support from the business sector, national government agencies, intergovernmental agencies for the adoption and diffusion of technological innovations in the social enterprise ecosystem. I'd also like to add that through our efforts towards program development, the platform was able to successfully get a grant from the Asia Pacific Network Information Center Foundation to initiate and pilot the development of community network models linked to social enterprise and sustainable local economic development. Let's have the video, please. Thanks.
Technological innovations can drive positive transformational social change. And you will also find that these social enterprises show us how technological innovations can enable communities around the world to achieve the sustainable development goals. And more importantly, they show us how technological innovations can result in social and economic inclusion of grassroots communities, disadvantaged communities, marginalized communities, enabling these communities to gain empowerment.
Sustainability of connectivity is enabled through partnerships and entrepreneurship models. And with this project, we hope to make connectivity meaningful in our day-to-day lives and that of our partners.
Community networks will surely connect the unconnected and bridge the digital divide, supporting inclusive recovery, build back fairer, and accelerate sustainable development goals.
We are happy to have Ethnic Foundation support our community network initiative. In China, we are developing a virtual platform enabling smallholder farmers to document, share, and showcase knowledge on quality food production, biodiversity conservation, sustainable farming, and local cultural practice, utilizing text, photos, videos, and other forms.
As part of our project, we will use ICT to improve product efficiency and income opportunities of the women and men small producers, entrepreneurs of coffee.
I'm sure you will agree with me that COVID-19 has demonstrated the important role that social enterprises play in the digital transformation. I think it is time that we invest into community networks as a key essential part of bridging the digital divide and ensuring that no one is left behind in this digital transformation.
We are happy to be a part of the launch of the Technological Innovations for Sustainable Development platform to advance community networks. Association for Progressive Communications, through its Local Access Network initiative, supports seeding of community networks in the global South, that is in the 3 continents of Asia, Africa, and Latin America. In partnership with ISEA, Association for Progressive Communications is very happy to support ISEA's initiative in capacity building, training, and technology development for seeding more community networks to grow in this continent.
The Institute for Social Entrepreneurship in Asia congratulates all stakeholders of the Technological Innovations for Sustainable Development platform. We are pleased to co-convene this platform with the Association of Progressive Communications and Angels of Impact. We look forward to co-creating, innovating, and mainstreaming community networks and complementary connectivity initiatives towards inclusive and sustainable local economies through social entrepreneurship in the years to come.
Congratulations to the Technological Innovations for Sustainable Development platform.
Congratulations to the Technological Innovations for Sustainable Development platform.
Again, the co-conveners of the platform is the Institute for Social Entrepreneurship in Asia, represented by Dr. Lisa and Dr. Albert Teo. We also have Angels of Impact, represented by Dr. Lina Green, and Association for Progressive Communications, represented by Sarbani Belur. So please approach any of us. And also, of course, Carlos Rey-Moreno, who's now based in Asia Pacific. You may approach any of us if you are willing to be part of the platform moving forward. Thank you. And then the other part of this session is actually the signing of a memorandum of understanding of the Institute for Social Entrepreneurship in Asia and the Association for Progressive Communications. If I may read the MOU details, the MOU made and entered into by and among Association for Progressive Communications and the Institute for Social Entrepreneurship in Asia with the following articles. The Article 1 is objectives of the partnership to agree to work together to build an enabling ecosystem and environment for seeding, promotion, and mainstreaming of community networks and complementary connectivity initiatives linked to social enterprise and sustainable local economic development. Article 2 talks about the Technological Innovations for Sustainable Development platform. Article 3 is other areas for collaboration, including capacity building, joint research programs, technical advisory and assistance, and joint advocacy initiatives engaging governments, intergovernmental bodies, and the private sector. Article 4 is key points of contact For APC, it would be Carlos Rey-Moreno, and for ISEA, it will be yours truly. Article 5 is about the autonomy of both parties. Article 6 is about the non-binding nature of the MOU. Article 7 is the amendments, and Article 8 is the effectivity and duration of the MOU. So to sign the memorandum of agreement, we have Dr. Lisa Dacanay representing ISEA and Dr. Carlos Rey-Moreno representing APC. Thank you very much.
Well, apparently you haven't heard my voice enough, so I've been asked to say something. No? It's a dream becoming true, to be honest, since we started learning about ISEA a couple of years ago. We started to realize how we could marry the two, right? The concept of community networks and all the work that ISEA and all the stakeholders within ISEA were doing with social entrepreneurship. Not only social entrepreneurship from social entrepreneurship, right? But the more we knew about you and about the network and about the members, the politics, the way you engage with the communities you work with, there is something there beyond. Gustav was talking about the networks of people, and I think this actually signifies, broadening the network that we already have to amazing people and to, bringing that other capacity building element from sustainability. And yeah, I'm really looking forward. I think it's going to be really exciting. And as Gomer is saying, I'm around for the next 2 or 3 days. So if there is anything, years to come. Yeah, that's true. Okay, enough.
So I just also wanted to say how happy the Institute for Social Entrepreneurship in Asia is to be sealing this partnership with the Association of Progressive Communications. In co-convening the platform, I think we are committing ourselves to seeding, enabling, growing community networks and complementary connectivity initiatives, as they're called now, by the mainstream powers that be, to actually bridge the digital divide, to connect the unconnected. And particularly, ISEA is very much interested to develop models of community networks and complementary connectivity initiatives that are linked to social enterprise and local economic development. Because I think we share the value of ensuring sustainability, and we share the value of ensuring meaningful connectivity. Meaningful connectivity that would ensure that ICT is used to improve the lives and livelihoods, as well as the of communities and of, when we say communities, we're also speaking here about not only communities on the ground per se, but also communities of stakeholders of social enterprises that are now not effectively and meaningfully connected to the internet. So thank you very much, and we look forward to many years of collaboration.